Hi, my name's Matt, and I'm just going to do a short video just to explain and talk about some of the struggles, I guess, that I've had in my life and where that's taken me, and how I've made some changes in my life to overcome them and face up to some of the issues and stuff that's gone on. I'm not very good at speaking like this at all, but I've had a lot of struggles growing up. I grew up in quite an abusive household. Um, my father was very mentally abusive, and controlling and narcissistic. And it was a really tough environment to live in as a child. I always felt on edge and anxious, like I was walking on eggshells. And I never felt comfortable in anything. Um, and it was really, really tough. And I can always remember dreading when my dad would come home from work. I could never understand why my parents were together. He'd done really horrible things to me and my mum and my family and my brother. And it just was a really uncomfortable and not nice situation to be in. And as a kid, that does affect you. And I grew up as a very anxious teenager. I liked being on my own. I was comfortable kind of in my own company. And through that, I kind of latched onto wrong people, and I definitely found myself gravitating towards people that were not, or a certain person that wasn't good for me. Um, and by 16, I'd started to self-harm, um, because I found that an absolute relief for what was going on inside my head. Um, and I didn't know what was quite wrong with me or why I felt the way that I felt. And self-harm for me kind of took everything away, the uncomfortableness, the void that I was feeling. It kind of stopped all of that, and um, that was my go-to then. Um, at 16, I also came out as gay, um, to an okay reception, if that's the right word. People were not really horrible to me. I'm from Essex, it's quite accepted there. I didn't really get bullied. Um, my dad was actually really good about it. My mum, it took her a little bit of time, but it was an okay thing. Um, and when I discovered alcohol as well, and I started drinking, and my alcohol abuse became quite bad. I think from a young age, I've never been a normal drinker. I've always been a drinker to excess, um, and that kind of carried on as my life progressed, and as I kind of went into my later teens, my drinking got quite bad again. I worked in a pub. I would always be the drunkest at events or family occasions, parties, whatever. But I definitely wasn't drinking daily. At that point, it was, like a weekly thing, like anyone. It's just, it was never ever normal. Um, and my behavior was just off. I had started trying to kill myself. My first suicide attempt was at about 18, um, which led me into hospital. Started seeing psychiatrists and mental health teams, and I just never really got anywhere because I couldn't be honest about my trauma. I couldn't be honest about my abuse that had happened to me, and I couldn't open up. I was so closed and so broken and so hurt that I wouldn't let anyone in, and I didn't give anything a chance. And there was opportunities. I was put forward for a lot of counselling in my 20s, and I just wasn't ready. I absolutely camped in a victim state and a place of absolute trauma. And because I camped there, what happened was my behavior then started to manifest in different ways. I became incredibly promiscuous. I was very active on the gay scene. I worked in a gay bar. I started taking drugs. I was taking a lot of ecstasy, and cocaine, and while drinking. And this was just to hide the fact that I couldn't deal with what was happening inside. I couldn't deal with what had happened to me, and I wasn't ready to deal with it. So I just drank, I self-harmed, I tried to kill myself, I took drugs, and I slept around. And that was what I'd done for a long period of time. And as I kind of went into my 30s, I realized maybe how dark life was getting for me. I lived in a bedsit in Southend in Essex. I drank heavily. I used to work shifts for a telecommunications company. I drank heavily on my days off, and on my days at work, I just white knuckled it till I could get an 8 a.m. finish again, where I would be in Sainsbury's trying to buy alcohol. And hiding it from people and hiding my addiction really well, because I was quite good at that. And it's a progressive illness, and that's what I've learned about alcoholism and addiction, and it got worse. And I eventually, it starts to take things from you. Alcohol and addiction very much grooms you, and it gives you what you need at the time, and it did. It gave me a safe place, and it stopped the world, and it stopped me thinking. But it doesn't last, and it's incredibly abusive. And what happened was then I moved to London. I lived in a shared house with some people who had similar addiction problems to me, and my addiction kind of spiraled, and it surpassed theirs. And I think when you're all kind of on at the same level, you can kind of get away with it. But when you're kind of out drinking alcoholics, you know that there's a problem. And they wasn't tolerating my behaviour. I was violent. I couldn't hold down my job anymore. I was calling in sick all the time. I'd been signed off for depression and anxiety. And I was just laying in my bed drinking. And I knew that I had a problem. I thought at first I was a drug addict because I couldn't stop taking cocaine, but I only ever took cocaine really when I was drunk, and I was drunk most of the time. So I told my mum, and I said, I think I'm a drug addict. It was at my sister passed away when I was quite young, and it was at her anniversary. My mum had asked me to go to the cemetery to with her to visit the plot where my sister's buried, and I was too drunk to go, and I felt really guilty about that. So I actually got the bus there to kind of pay my respects on my own. You make these decisions when you're drunk, and my mum was still there, and she saw me with a bottle of wine, and we had a conversation, and I said, I think I'm a drug addict. And through there, I approached my doctor, and I went into a day program, an amazing place called One Northeast in Woodford. They took me in. I went for an assessment on the Monday. I started on the Tuesday, and I got sober for 4 weeks, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. I worked really hard, and I thought I'd really made progress. And one day I came out of One Northeast, and I thought I will reward myself with a bottle of wine. And that's what I'd done. And I came round about 5 days later to my friends in my bedroom, clearing up all sorts of mess that I'd made, and just being really disappointed with me. And I got hospitalised again, and I came out of hospital, and I carried on drinking. And eventually I managed to get back to the day programme, and I lasted a couple of weeks, and it was just before Christmas in 2018. I was due to go to my family's to spend Christmas with them. They had decided that there was going to be no alcohol there, and everyone was really looking forward to it. And a couple of days before, I felt like I would be okay to have a drink and no one would know. And I'd done that, and I picked up a bottle of wine again. And within a matter of hours, everyone knew I'd been drinking, and I couldn't stop. And it got really bad. That was a horrific time. And it got to the point where I decided that I would rather live on the street in London than give up alcohol, and that's what I'd done. I took myself up London, and I slept on the streets and just drank, and I was missing for a while. And eventually I couldn't take it anymore, and I called my mum, and I was back in a day program again. And that was kind of the vicious circle for a year, really. In and out of the day program, relapse after relapse. I got made redundant from my job, which I was at for 10 years. I secured another job, a better job. I turned up for that on my first day drunk, fell over, had vomit all down me. I lost my friends. My best friend was pregnant with triplets. She wouldn't have me near her. My family wouldn't pick up the phone to me. And I decided that enough was enough. And so I contacted a rehab, a Christian organisation called Teen Challenge. Their head office is in Nottingham. And I had my assessment there in I had my assessment in there, I think I went in September, so I had my assessment in there in August 2019. Prior to that, my sober date is the 20th of June 2019. So on the 19th of June, I decided that enough was enough and I stopped drinking. Um, my last drink was a bottle of wine, a bottle of Pinot from an off license in Essex, and I just was defeated. Just couldn't do it anymore. I was so smashed to pieces. And I was in and out of hospitals and police stations and living arrangements, and I had not a penny to my name, and I was shoplifting, and it was just a really horrific time. And I thought, I can't live like this anymore, and I'm just done. And I went into rehab on the 16th of September 2019. And that's kind of where my journey began, I guess. Prior to going into rehab, I was doing AA, and I still actively do AA now. I was done 90 meetings in 90 days to get me 3 months sober to be able to go into rehab. And that's when my therapy and all that's kind of started. Rehab was tough. It was a Christian organisation. I was an openly gay man there. They have different beliefs. They kind of believe that it's a choice or a lifestyle choice. But I kind of just had to roll with that because it was where I needed to be. As much as my opinion is really different, being a gay man, I know that that's not true. I still just kind of went along with it, and it was really hard. I got quite bullied in rehab. I lost a lot of weight in rehab, but I learned so much about myself, and what I learned was about the decisions that I make when I come out of rehab is what's important. And I made very lucky that I made good decisions. And I've never ever stopped my therapy, and that's kind of what keeps me sober now. I came out of rehab in July 2020. I was in there for 10 and a half months. And I hit the ground running, really. I didn't stop any therapy. In fact, I increased it. I started seeing a one-to-one therapist. I was doing group therapy, which I still do today. I still go back to One North East and have group therapy pretty much on a daily basis for around 2 hours. And I can't stress enough the importance of therapy. I can't stress enough how important it is to find a safe space, be it one person or a group, where you can just share your stuff. Because trauma is there and it's real and it exists. And I lived in that place for so long, and I can easily go back and live there again. I have to try and stop myself every day, and therapy helps with that. Because I don't want to be that person anymore. You know, I've been abused all my life, and I'm not prepared for that to happen anymore. And through therapy, I can stop that. Therapy has freed me. I feel safe enough to be able to speak about things that have happened to me, things that I don't even tell my friends and my family. I can take to a therapy group, I can take to an AA meeting, I can take to my one-to-one therapist. I can tell them about situations and daily events that happen to me, and we talk it through, and they put a spin on it that I never even saw. I don't think I would have ever got sober without being able to face some of the demons in a safe environment. I don't think I would have ever got sober and clean from drugs and alcohol if people hadn't loved me till I could love myself. I don't think I would have ever got sober and clean if I didn't feel safe enough to share experiences that had happened to me, if I didn't feel comfortable, if I didn't feel accepted and seen. Therapy also isn't just a place where I can go and dump all my stuff. It's also a learning ground for me. It's school. And I constantly have to learn stuff. Every day I'm learning. And next month I'll be 2 years sober on the 20th of June 2021. 2 years sober. Um, and I couldn't go 2 hours without having a drink. There was a time in my life that I was probably one of the worst alcoholics on the planet. Um, and the weird thing is, I was kind of proud of that at the time. And now I'm just really proud that I don't have to be a victim of what happened to me anymore. That I can be brave enough to face this, that I can say, actually, I break a cycle of abuse. And through therapy, that's where my strength for that has come from. Um, life isn't easy, and pain happens and things happen. And sometimes I don't know how to deal with life or stuff. But in therapy, I learn that I get a really safe place to talk about stuff. I learn tools of how to deal with my life, and I can share experiences of what's happened to me. Um, Therapy has saved my life, changed my life, given me a life. Um, but I'll leave it there. And that was just a little bit about my journey. So thank you very much.